Home Nursing Agency has been in this community for, this year will be 45 years. And as a nonprofit organization, we work really hard to give back to the community. The donations that we have from families and friends truly is our way to be able to create programs like the Healing Patch, to be able to support children who have lost a loved one. That is our opportunity as a nonprofit organization to give back to our local communities. And also through our Home Nursing Agency Foundation, we are able to serve those who maybe don't have the payment for services. Therefore, we're constantly looking at utilizing foundation dollars through discretionary funds and other opportunities to help those in need who may not have the insurance to cover the service. We service a lot of patients and their families, and we serve them as one, because in hospice you truly are making sure that you are providing that care to both that person and their family, because they're all experiencing the illness together and working together with those families so that people can be where they want to be, in their homes or in their wherever their residence may be. I think we need to understand, and this is where it's very important for ourselves and our families to explore hospice sooner rather than later. A lot of times it's a difficult conversation to have, and what we want to make sure is that we avoid crisis. We want to avoid crisis within our families. So it's really important to be able to have those conversations so that it doesn't get to a crisis, knowing what does mom want? Does mom want to be at home when we can't reverse the illness anymore? That illness cannot be reversed. Could be a combination of illnesses. But we always say don't wait, because people and families tend to wait too long to come on hospice, and then what happens is we're only able to provide care for a couple of days, and then it's harder to manage symptoms. So the more time we have, the improved quality of life a person can have when experiencing a life-limiting illness. A lot of times I'll receive phone calls where friends of the family may call up and not know enough about hospice, but maybe the family doesn't want to bring up that word, because sometimes families think that their loved one is going to give up hope when we mention the word hospice, when truly hospice is about hope. It's about that quality of life. It's making sure that we can do everything we can to work with the physician, that person's physician, and work with the family together to improve symptom management and quality of life. So we always say, please ask the questions. Don't hesitate to call Home Nursing Agency to ask, when is the right time? Because we can always do an assessment, to determine, or go through some of the things that have been happening in that person's life more recently, and would they qualify to meet the guidelines for hospice. And those guidelines are the guidelines that are established, by Medicare, by our government. Our volunteers are key in hospice in that a lot of times they're providing companionship so that maybe the family can go out and maybe when that person who's on the hospice program can no longer leave the home, that we're there to be able to provide that additional companionship. Being able to identify how volunteers can best meet the needs of that person who's on hospice, like if you like to play cards. So really doing hobbies and things that that person on hospice would love to do, but don't always have someone who has the same interests. So trying to match up those interests. We have veterans on our hospice program, and we want to always make sure that we recognize the special gifts of our hospice patients. And often those may be veterans, and so we love to have also veterans who are volunteers, so that we can match up the hospice veteran with our volunteer veteran, and they speak the same language. So again, that's to improve the quality of life. We have volunteers who work in the office and help us with phone calls to the families, help us with a tuck-in service, just to make a phone call. Do you have everything you need? It's Thursday. We might have a snowstorm coming up this weekend, and we want to make sure you have everything you absolutely need. So we have volunteers who make those phone calls also. In hospice, we provide a real thorough orientation. How to communicate with someone who's on hospice. And one of the most important skills that a volunteer could have in hospice is to be able to listen. To truly be able to listen and to give your full presence to that person. Often our volunteers come back to us and say, this is the greatest gift that hospice person gave to me. Being able to be present and to be of assistance. And our volunteers are supervised so that we help them and do joint home visits together so that they're not scared or frightened. Again, when we match up the volunteers with the hospice patients and their interests and their hobbies, it's truly a match made together when they come together. Our volunteers are 90-year-olds. Our volunteers are 16-year-olds. We always need volunteers in hospice because we're in such a large service area. We're always recruiting volunteers. So the need is always there. We can't provide our hospice service without the generosity and the time and the commitment of our volunteers. So orientation for becoming a volunteer in hospice it can be started at any time. It truly is based on the schedule of that volunteer. I think the most important thing we can do as children, as neighbors, as parents, is to be able to ask our care providers, our physicians, who we work with every day, to ask about hospice. And not to hesitate and ask those questions of Home Nursing Agency, and to call us. We can help in working with your physician of how we can better help your loved one who may need this service, and to rid the myths of what hospice isn't, and truly focus on what it is if your loved one needs us. So indeed, to call Home Nursing Agency, and that's our 800 number, our 1-800-445-6262, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, should you have any questions.